The Riverside Country Club's main ballroom buzzed with congratulatory energy as nearly 100 guests celebrated Dad's retirement from his 30-year career as a bank president. Crystal glasses clinked with champagne, servers circulated with appetizers that cost more per piece than most people's lunch, and everyone wore their finest clothes to honor the man who'd built his reputation on conservative financial wisdom and sound investment advice. I stood near the dessert table in my usual Target dress and cardigan, watching my family work the room like the social politicians they'd always been. Dad held court in his custom suit, accepting handshakes and business cards from colleagues who still saw networking opportunities even at a retirement party. Mom glided between groups in her designer gown, making sure everyone knew about the European cruise they'd booked to celebrate Dad's newfound freedom. My brother Michael commanded attention near the bar, his wife Jennifer sparkling beside him in jewelry that probably cost more than most people's cars. They'd just returned from their vacation home in the Hamptons, and Michael was regaling anyone who'd listen with stories about their new yacht and the exclusive marina where they'd docked it. "Katie." Michael's voice boomed across the room as he spotted me by the desserts. "Come over here, I want you to meet some people." I walked over with my small plate of cake, knowing exactly what was coming. This was Michael's favorite party trick, introducing his struggling sister to successful people so he could demonstrate his own superiority by comparison. "Everyone, this is my little sister Katie," he announced to the circle of Dad's former colleagues and their spouses. "She's still figuring out her life, bless her heart." The group smiled politely, the kind of indulgent expressions people wear when they're about to witness someone else's mild embarrassment for entertainment. "What do you do, Katie?" asked Mrs. Richardson, wife of Dad's former business partner. "I work in property management," I said simply. "Property management," Michael repeated with a chuckle. "She means she's a maintenance coordinator for some apartment complex downtown. Fixes broken toilets and collects rent checks from college students." "It's honest work," Mr. Richardson said kindly, though I could see the pity in his eyes. "Oh, it's honest," Michael agreed, "but let's be realistic about what it pays. She's 31 years old and still renting a tiny studio apartment because she can't afford anything better. Some of us have actual careers, you know." Jennifer nodded sympathetically. "We keep offering to help her get started in something more substantial. Michael has connections in finance, I know people in real estate sales. But some people are just comfortable with limited ambitions." "Limited ambitions and limited income," Michael added. "I mean, she can't even pay rent most months without scrambling. Still driving that ancient Honda from college, still shopping at discount stores. It's actually kind of sad when you think about it." The circle of successful retirees and their well-dressed spouses nodded with understanding. Everyone knew someone like me, the family member who just couldn't seem to get their act together despite having every advantage growing up. "The worst part," Michael continued, warming to his theme, "is that Dad spent 40 years teaching us about smart investments and building wealth, and Katie learned absolutely nothing. She could have had a real career, made something of herself, but instead she chose this." He gestured vaguely at my outfit and general existence. "Well," Mrs. Richardson said diplomatically, "not everyone is cut out for business success. It takes a particular kind of drive and vision." "Exactly," Michael agreed. "Take our family for example. Dad built a career in banking, I'm a financial advisor with my own firm, Jennifer's in luxury real estate. We understand investments, property values, market dynamics. But Katie..." He shook his head sadly. "She thinks property management means unclogging drains." The group chuckled politely at his joke. "Speaking of property," Mr. Richardson said, "have you seen the new luxury development they're building downtown? Riverside Towers? 200 units starting at $3,000 a month. That's the kind of project that shows real vision and capital." "Oh, we looked at investing in that," Jennifer said. "The developer was asking for serious money though. $10 million minimum buy-in for partnership stakes. Way beyond most people's league." Michael nodded knowingly. "That's the difference between real investors and people like Katie. She thinks property means the apartment she can barely afford to rent. We think property means ownership, equity, long-term wealth building." I took another bite of cake and listened to them discuss various investment opportunities they'd considered, vacation properties they'd bought, market trends they were following. Standard wealthy person conversation that I'd grown up hearing but had supposedly never learned to participate in. My phone buzzed with a text from my property manager. Final signatures complete. All 200 units officially transferred. Congratulations, Ms. Anderson. I typed back quickly, perfect. Have David call me at 8:30 exactly as planned. Excuse me, I said to the group, I need to check on something work-related. Work-related, Michael repeated to the group after I'd stepped away. Probably got a call about a backed-up sink somewhere. That's the glamorous world of property maintenance. More polite laughter followed his comment. I walked back to the dessert table and checked my watch. 8:28 p.m. Almost time. Dad approached with his retirement cake, still glowing from all the congratulations and well wishes he'd received throughout the evening. Katie, sweetheart, he said, are you enjoying the party? I know this crowd is pretty successful, probably makes you feel a bit out of place. Everyone seems very nice, I said diplomatically. They are. 40 years of building relationships with the city's top business leaders. Men and women who understand how to build real wealth, create lasting success. He paused, giving me that look he'd perfected over the years, part pity, part disappointment. I just wish some of that wisdom had rubbed off on all my children. Before I could respond, Michael's voice rang out across the room again. Dad, come back over here. I was just telling everyone about Katie's career in property management. He made air quotes with his fingers, getting another round of chuckles from his audience. Dad and I walked back to the group, where Michael had clearly been building up to another round of commentary about my failures. The thing is, Michael was saying, Katie actually thinks she understands real estate because she works at some apartment complex. It's like thinking you understand fine dining because you work at a fast food restaurant. What kind of properties do you manage, Katie? Mr. Richardson asked politely. Mostly residential, I said. Some commercial mixed in. Residential, Michael repeated. Student housing downtown. The kind of place where the biggest challenge is getting college kids to pay their rent on time and not destroy the appliances. How many units? Mrs. Richardson asked, trying to make conversation. About 200, I said. Michael laughed out loud. 200 units that she maintains, not owns. Big difference. She's basically a glorified janitor for someone else's investment. The group was starting to look a bit uncomfortable with Michael's relentless focus on my supposed failures, but he was too caught up in his performance to notice. I mean, think about it, he continued. While Jennifer and I are buying investment properties and building equity, Katie is cleaning up other people's messes for $12 an hour. While we're planning which vacation home to visit next month, she's worrying about whether her ancient car will start in the morning. My phone rang at exactly 8:30 p.m. The caller ID showed David Chin, property manager. Perfect timing. Excuse me, I said to the group, I should take this. See? Michael said to his audience. Probably some emergency. Broken air conditioner or something equally glamorous. I answered the phone and, following our carefully planned script, immediately put it on speaker. Ms. Anderson, David's clear voice filled the suddenly quiet circle. Congratulations. The Riverside Towers acquisition is officially complete. All 200 luxury units are now under Anderson Property Holdings ownership. The $47 million transaction cleared this afternoon. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear glasses clinking at tables across the room. Michael's face had gone completely white. Jennifer's mouth was literally hanging open. Dad's retirement cake slipped from his suddenly unsteady hands and hit the floor with a wet splat. David, I said calmly, can you confirm the unit breakdown for me? Absolutely. 153 luxury apartments currently occupied at an average rent of $3,200 per month, 47 units in the premium tier averaging $4,500 monthly. Total monthly revenue of approximately $690,000. Mrs. Richardson made a small choking sound. And the commercial spaces on the ground level? I continued. All leased. The restaurant pays $18,000 monthly, the boutique fitness center is $12,000, and the coffee shop is $8,000. Total commercial revenue adds another $38,000 per month. Michael was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Katie, what? Oh, David continued. And the monthly revenue report shows your total portfolio is now generating $2.3 million per month across all properties. Should I email you the detailed breakdown? That would be perfect, thanks, David. I hung up the phone and looked around at the circle of stunned faces. 2.3 million per month? Dad's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. Give or take, I said, taking another bite of cake. It fluctuates depending on occupancy rates. Katie, Michael said slowly, his voice about 2 octaves higher than usual, what the hell is Anderson Property Holdings? My company. I started it about 6 years ago with a small apartment building downtown. The one you thought I was just maintaining. You started it? Jennifer asked, her jewelry catching the light as her hands trembled slightly. Well, I didn't start with much capital. Had to begin small and reinvest everything back into acquisitions. But real estate is pretty straightforward once you understand the fundamentals. Mr. Richardson cleared his throat. Katie, when you say your total portfolio. 14 properties currently. Mix of residential and commercial. The Riverside Towers was the biggest single acquisition, but I've been buying steadily for years. Dad found his voice, though it came out shaky. 14 properties worth about $180 million total, give or take. Hard to get exact valuations since the market keeps moving, but that's the current assessment. The number hung in the air like expensive perfume. $180 million, Mom said, appearing beside Dad with her own expression of complete shock. She'd obviously been listening from nearby. The cash flow is really the important part, I said. Property values are great, but monthly revenue is what pays the bills. 2.3 million per month, Michael repeated mechanically as if saying it might make it make sense. That's gross, obviously. After expenses, maintenance, taxes, it's more like $1.8 million net monthly. Michael sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Katie, I don't understand. How could you possibly? How did you afford? The first property? I saved for 3 years while working maintenance at that student complex you keep making fun of. Learned everything I could about building management, repair costs, tenant relations, market rates. When a small building went into foreclosure, I bought it with a combination of savings and a hard money loan. How much savings? Jennifer asked weakly. $25,000. Plus a $200,000 loan at 12% interest. Pretty risky, but I knew the numbers worked if I could increase occupancy and raise rents to market rate. Dad was staring at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You've been doing this for 6 years. 6.5, actually. The student complex job was perfect training. I learned maintenance, property management, tenant screening, everything from the ground up. Plus, living in a tiny apartment kept my expenses low so I could reinvest every penny of profit. The tiny apartment, Mom said slowly, that we always made fun of, was a strategic choice. Why pay high rent when I was building equity in real estate? Every dollar I saved on personal expenses was a dollar I could invest in properties. Mrs. Richardson looked around the group with obvious discomfort. We should probably give you some family time to discuss this. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone. Mrs. Richardson, didn't you mention you live in the Grandview Apartments on 5th Street? She nodded cautiously. I bought that building last year. You're one of my tenants. I turned to Mr. Richardson. And your business office is in the Commerce Plaza downtown, right? I own that too. The Richardsons exchanged glances and made quick excuses to leave our conversation. Katie, Dad said, his voice still shaky, why didn't you tell us? All these years we thought, we treated you like a failure? I finished. I know. You made that very clear at every family gathering. Michael was still staring at me with a combination of shock and what looked like nausea. But we were trying to help you. We offered you connections, job opportunities. You offered me entry-level positions at companies where I'd make less in a year than I make in a week, I corrected. And you did it while making jokes about how I'd never understand real business. We didn't know, Jennifer protested. If we'd known you were successful, you would have treated me differently. That's exactly the point. Dad cleared his throat, his banker instincts finally kicking in despite the shock. Katie, this is extraordinary. We should discuss family investment opportunities, maybe some partnership possibilities. I laughed, a sound that seemed to surprise everyone at the table. Dad, Anderson Property Holdings generates more monthly revenue than your entire retirement portfolio. I don't need family investment. But we're family, Mom said, her voice taking on a pleading tone I'd never heard before. Family supports each other. We can help with connections, financing, expertise. Like you've been helping for the past 6 years? I asked. By calling me a failure every time I saw you? By making jokes about my cheap clothes and old car while I was building a real estate empire? My phone buzzed with another text. I glanced at it and smiled. Actually, I said, this is interesting timing. I just got confirmation on another acquisition. Michael looked like he was afraid to ask. What acquisition? The Hamptons property you've been renting for your summer vacations. The owner finally agreed to sell. I close on it next week. Jennifer's face went completely pale. Our rental house? My rental house as of Monday. Don't worry though, I'm not raising the rent. Family discount and all that. The silence that followed was broken only by the sounds of the retirement party continuing around us. Other families celebrating success, making toasts, sharing stories about achievements and futures full of possibility. Katie, Michael said finally, his voice barely audible, what does this mean for us? It means, I said, finishing the last bite of my cake, that you're going to have to find some new material for parties. The jokes about your sister who can't pay rent aren't going to work anymore. I picked up my Target purse and slung it over my shoulder. Congratulations on your retirement, Dad. I hope you enjoy the cruise. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Michael, the yacht you've been bragging about tonight? The marina where you dock it? I'm buying that property too. Small world, right? As I walked toward the exit, I could hear the explosion of whispered conversation behind me. Frantic questions, desperate attempts to process what had just happened, probably mixed with calculations about how this changed their relationships with me. My phone rang again as I reached my Honda in the parking lot. Katie, how did it go? David's voice filled the car as I answered on Bluetooth. Exactly as expected, I said, starting the engine. They showed me who they really are when they think it doesn't matter. And the Hamptons property? Perfect timing. Michael's probably still trying to figure out how his unsuccessful sister just became his landlord. Speaking of landlords, David said, your brother's business office lease comes up for renewal next month. The building owner is asking if we want to raise the rent to market rate. I pulled out of the country club parking lot, thinking about the conversation that was probably still raging inside the retirement party. Keep it the same, I said finally. Family discount. He's going to need all the help he can get adjusting to his new reality. Tomorrow, when the local business journal ran their story about the Riverside Towers acquisition, when my family's friends started asking questions about their unsuccessful daughter, when the invitations to family events started including phrases like, we'd love to hear about your business ventures, things would be different. Not because I'd finally proven myself worthy of their respect, but because they'd finally proven themselves unworthy of mine. Anderson Property Holdings had bigger acquisitions planned and better opportunities ahead. And for the first time in 6 years, I wouldn't have to explain any of it to people who had already decided I wasn't worth listening to.